Good morning, 7 a.m. The things you do for your friends. So, I do a lot of supersets, and some of the best are where you incorporate pulling and pulling, pulling and pushing. So, one of my favorites is the row, the dumbbell row, and done with the chest press. So for both exercises, what we're actually doing, we are creating instability. So I put my knee on the edge of the bench where your head would usually be. Of course, you can use either end of the bench to do this. And you see the leg is going out to the side, and I'm on the ball of the foot here. And then I move from the center of gravity is closer to the bench. I move the center of gravity away from the bench. And then I imagine that I'm pushing something up with my elbow and keeping my shoulder down as if I were standing upright. And this is the movement. So this is the left. You see my heel is always up on the left. And I'm to the side, I'm not over the bench. So most people do rowing like this. This is a very secure position. But here you can go very heavy, but it'll strengthen, all the muscles in your hips. Because people very often forget that there are around 650 muscles in the body. It's actually different from person to person. So here we do left, and here we do right. Again, moving away from the bench. And we do a superset between this one and then the chest. So the stronger position for the chest is this one here, where I have my legs down on the floor. But this is a weaker one. But when you're using like half of your body weight, you'll have to put your feet out like this. So I don't know how far you're willing to go, to not too crunches, but basically for me, this is all done so I don't have to do these crunches that we all love to hate. Well, I don't like it. Probably be a part of being a gymnast. And it's not worth doing this one when you're having an incline on the bench. And then you use this one here, again. This one is to the side, heel is up all the time. You're here and here. And it's a little different when you move away, but it's better for the upper part of the back. So if you want more muscle mass closer to the shoulders than down to the waist, then this one might actually be ideal. And you can do it also with the elbow here on the bench. But this is a much stronger position. So these two that I'm showing you now, before the rowing was, more unstable. There was more instability in the rowing, but in this one that I'm showing you now, there's more stability in the rowing. And because then you do the chest, and when you're using half your body weight, which is usually what I'm working with at least, if you're not, you should be, to get stronger. And this one here is it's a fantastic one. So you control completely how the weight goes into the chest. And I normally am an advocate of rather, just doing fewer exercises and doing them really well. But, of course, people are very different in how they do their training. And but this is my philosophy. So I'd rather spend 20, 25, maximum 30 minutes in the gym and completely, kill the muscle from a certain angle than to be doing this and this and this and this and this. All these different exercises. But then again, this goes to, what you're focusing on. And maintaining the muscle is in big part shocking the system. And one of the main things that happens is that the body just adjusts to everything. And that's the same with the diet, which we'll get into later. So these are pullovers. So here you bring the hips down and the weight here, but you have to make sure that you can rest you can, if you want, for the position, you can look this way, and that you do that by placing the edge of your head on the bench here. And you see, I'm looking now this way. What this does is this creates this arch. And this is a fantastic movement here. And you breathe in before you go down and out on the way up. So you really fill up the rib cage here with air, and this trains a lot of muscles, including pectoralis minor, which are very important for how big your chest looks when you expand it. And you know, this is one of the major exercises that made Arnold's chest look so incredible. So I am here in a neutral position with the head, and I breathe in, go down, and it's not less the stretch. So breathe in, down, stretch, and exhaling on the way up. So this, of course, it works the triceps and you know, many muscles at the same time. But number 1, 2, and 3, it's you know, for the back, but also. But number 1, 2, 3 is for the chest. So it gives you a lot of gives you a lot of meat here in the latissimus dorsi muscle. But it you know, it allows you to do this position here, basically, better. So if you're doing side chest, I don't know how much you're into that kind of stuff, but just the way that you stand changes, because this brings your chest forward and lifts up the rib cage. You know, so there's nothing negative about that, no matter how you look at it. And so this is a superset between rowing and see what I'm doing. I'm pulling and I'm pushing. And when you're equally strong in pulling and pushing, there's much less likelihood that you'll be suffering from injuries unless you're exercising, you know, incorrectly. But if you maintain the proper, you know, technique while training, and you're as strong in the pushing and the pulling, then you're always better in in this regard. So it lessens the likelihood of shoulder injury. And of course, like I've mentioned before, the shoulders are the only joint that does circumduction. So it's the most unstable joint, and but it's the most susceptible to injury as well. So we have to take really good care of it. So we have exercises that like pull downs. Pull downs can be done in many different ways. So let's set up here for the pull downs. So here are the pull downs. So basically you have a 4-part movement for the pull downs. And the first part, and most important one, is the shoulder girdle. So the shoulders have to be down for the latissimus dorsi muscle to be working effectively. And this is something that escapes a lot of people. And at the same time, it's very important. But it's very important also that you define before you start training what you want out of the training. So with a wider grip, you're not using as much weight. That's for most people, that's a given, unless you're doing these, you know, this here. And so 4 parts of the movement. First one is shoulder down. Second is elbows down, and you see your shoulders are still down. Third is elbows up, still shoulders down, and fourth is shoulders up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a wider grip. You can also use a narrower grip. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you see, when I use a narrower grip, I'm going all the way down more or less to the chest. But that's not the real issue of the pull downs. The real issue of the pull downs is to keep the shoulders down so the latissimus dorsi muscle is working all the time. And you have like narrow grip where you can hold closer to you, and this involves more work for the abs, but it's still the same basic movement. So 1, shoulders down, 2, elbows to the side, 3, shoulders down, elbows up, and 4. So this movement here is what most people never realize. And this is one of the major factors in keeping the shoulder joints flexible and movable, if you can say that. But this one is excellent here for getting stronger, but it also creates a lot of contraction all the way down to the throughout the latissimus dorsi muscle. And of course we have the chin-ups, and one of my pet peeves. So it's this breakdance, this movement. So this, to a gymnast, this is not pull-ups. Pull-ups are a movement where you have it's a very strict movement. But realize that it follows exactly the same rules as the one that I was doing earlier. And a very good one to do is to incorporate, you're doing the back, and you can also include the abs. So you go here, and just holding the legs like this during the movement gives you a lot of added features into the chin-up. So stricter chin-ups, not this spermatozoid swimming around bullshit. You want to control the outcome. And good to set a baseline by doing strict ones and counting them, then you know exactly how much you can do that you can compare to later. So you were talking about the bench press, that you're reluctant to do the bench press. And there's actually a great way to do the bench press. It has to do with using a Smith machine. One thing you have to realize with a lot of the Smith machines is that there's an angle. So it's like on this one there's no angle, it's just going straight up and down. But for many of them they're going like in a slight angle. So if it's going straight up and down, you don't have to think about it at all. But when there's an angle, you have to take it into account. Because in the chest movement, and especially the bench press, if you look at it like from a technical standpoint, then you want the weight to start, closer to your shoulders when you're extended. But then the bar, if the bar is here, the bar is going down like this, so the elbows go closer to the body, and then you push the weight away. And this is both to stabilize the shoulder joints and to incorporate the latissimus dorsi and other parts of the body to act as a co-conspirator in the movement. And but keeping the shoulders down is very important. But if you're training alone, then it of course doesn't make a lot of sense to be doing heavy bench presses by yourself. There are of course several deaths per year, like worldwide, in the US a lot, when people are training in their garages and they are using more weight than they can lift, or they just suffering from fatigue or doing one repetition too many or anything, and they lose the bar. You know, they drop the bar because they can't hold it anymore, and it ends up on their chest and rolls up onto their neck. So it's one of the reasons not to use the clips on the ends. You know, when you're training at home, and but using the Smith machine enables you to do very, very heavy bench presses. And first thing you have to do is to make sure that the bench is actually in the middle, so that you see it, you know, from the where the knurling starts on the bar. You see exactly where it is, and this is such a fantastic movement because what they're doing a lot for training is partial repetitions. So you do this a lot to get stronger in the bench press, deadlift, squat, whatever you're doing. And of course with the more technical lifts like the Olympic lifting, then you're splitting all of these up. And the same, you know, you do the same with martial arts, you do the same with gymnastics. You take a complex movement, you break it up, you train it in smaller fragments of the movement, and then you put them all together. And it's you know, it's a fantastic way to train. And also visualizing is very important. So here I'm on the bench, and it's actually not like I want to have it. Some assless person. No, you can't say that, so politically correct. So this is too low, but it's very easy to place it, you know, when you're using the Smith machine. And you can do wide grip bench, you can do narrow grip bench, you have to do both. If you're gonna be a good bencher, not that I'm a great one, but I've trained with great ones. So the groove, the line here on the bar is supposed to be a very specific width, but the width is different from bar to bar. So you have to, you know, I bring a measuring tape most of the time. I know exactly what my grip is for maximum effectiveness and safety for the shoulders. But you see here, this is such a great exercise. See, so you can be doing very, very heavy benches here, and if you can't make it up, you can always just get it here, and at least you're not being crushed by the weight. You see what I mean? And the Smith machine, if there's one at your gym, is a great invention. And you can do also in the same way incline presses, shoulder presses. You can even do like parts of, like I say, you split up the movement. You can do parts of deadlifts or you know, shrugs. There are so many movements that you can do in the Smith machine. And the best thing is that most of them have these safety pins. So let's say that you're working on something specific. But then again, one very important point. The weight varies. So on the way down, you have the ball bearings inside here, and they create a drag. And it's actually, for most machines, especially the stunted ones, the weight is heavier on the way up because there's resistance. And the more weight that you use, the more it's pushing on the ball bearings and everything inside, you know, the capsule here. So you have to take that into account. It's very hard to calculate exactly from this to the bench press, but you know, rather than not doing the bench press, and especially heavier bench press, if you're okay with doing that and like to do that, then you can use the Smith machine so you can actually go heavier, but safely. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is on the fourth one, and this is on the fourth one. So now I'm doing super heavy bench, and I'm just training alone. And you see, this is not going all the way down to the chest, but it's such an important safety feature to have. Yeah, so this is the, but you know, if you're not gonna make it up, like you can't lift it up, then you just flick the wrist and it ends up here. And you know, the bar is there, it's not going anywhere. So by all means to use it, but of course familiarize yourself with using the machine and realize if you wanted to rather lock, you know, turning this way or this way. And I mean that in the sense that whether you have your head on this side controls that. And most people, they like to close, you know, to close the bench like this or to close the bench like this. It's something that you have to try, you know, a few times. So you should try with the head on separate, you know, sides, and figure out, you know, what version of it works best for you. And because it's a safety feature, because you know, if you mean to get good in anything, of course, like you know already from doing things throughout your life, then you have to really, you know, do things in a specific way. And that's one of the more important reasons to create like a routine. So now I'm turning the other way, see? And here's the movement. And if I'm, you know, pushing here and I can't do any more, the wrist moves forward. So this may seem like a little thing, but you know, when you're in the thick of it, you have to have the reactions there. The same, doesn't matter if you're doing scuba diving, you know, first rule there is do nothing. You know, if something comes up, you do nothing. So you just, you know, realize what's going on. But in this one, and all kinds of training, you have to have the reactions there. So you have to foresee what might happen. And so if I'm doing squats in this one, then these pins here are vitally important, because you can go down and you can have it so it stops exactly, more or less, where you want it to stop. And at the same time, it's not the same as doing a barbell squat or a barbell bench press, but you know, it gives you most of the benefits without placing your, you know, self into any danger. And I've used these a lot, especially when it's competing in bodybuilding. And there are so many exercises that you can do here, like rowing. It's just, you know, it's endless almost, how many exercises you can do here. It's like drag curls, where you go here up against the body. So if you want to develop the biceps, you can do triceps in this, and of course doing bench press with a closer grip. Just make sure that it goes a little lower in the chest so the elbows can go here without creating tension within the shoulder joints. That, you know, you do triceps when you're doing, you know, a more narrow grip bench press. You know, that's the main difference. The effort is more in the triceps. But of course you have to do both, wider and narrower grip, because the triceps, they execute the lockout and the movement. But the start and everything is on the chest, and if you do it correctly, technically, then you're using the lats a lot too. So these are a few ideas. I have a lot of ideas, but I rather want to start with the more basic things. And also, very importantly, just get in there, get your training done, and your goal is always to get a temporary muscle exhaustion. You know, you're creating this exhaustion in as short amount of time as possible without damaging the joints or the muscles or anything. And this is like an equation that gives you the most results. So if you warm up properly, the sooner you can, you know, finish the muscle, you know, if you're going to get, you know, bigger muscles. But if you want to get stronger, it's a very, very different set it's a very, very different setup. Because then you're relying much more on rests between, you know, weightlifting. You want to rest like 3 minutes minimum, preferably 5 minutes between doing heavy deadlifts or heavy squat or bench presses or anything, you know. And if you don't have a lot of time or you know, you just want to finish the exercise, or if you're training alone, that can be a very, very slow and boring progress. So another thing that you have to, you know, decide, you know, before you start, what do you want the outcome to be, and that will, you know, have the most effect on what exercises you choose, in what order, how many repetitions, how much rest between the training, and generally what is the focus, you know, the red line going through all the exercises. Are you getting stronger? Are you getting more muscular? You know, are you just doing it for a mirror? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just different goals. And the best thing about that is you can switch between them. And I do this a lot. I do heavier and fewer repetitions, maybe for a month and a half. And then I might switch to doing 12 to 15 repetitions with supersets and everything, even doing 3 exercises in a row. And then you do one exercise, boom, into another, boom, into another. And you know, it's just like, you know, it really taxes the system, but you're not going to do that using like super heavy weights, you know. Probably could if you're training for strongman, but then again, it's another different direction that you're going in. So you have to choose which direction you want to go in, and what you want the outcome to be before you start. So let's start with this and the shoulders and arms that I did. And I'll also go do one for the legs later.